is a change in barley varieties in Scotland on a regular basis in Scotland. I'm curious about the barley varieties that you use these days, and by what standards you choose.
The barley variety could change maybe every 3 or 4 years, because barley's at the start they have resistance to disease, and then eventually they become prone where the disease can actually then start affecting the yields of the barley. So they do change regularly. I mean, sometimes they can change maybe twice a year. It has happened at Glengoyne, where it's changed twice a year. I've been at distilleries where it could change 3 times a month, where you can go from different barleys. The parameters of the barley is it's got to give good yields. It's got to give good yields to the farmer. That's very important. So when the farmer puts the seed into the ground, he's got to know that he's going to get many tons of barley from that field. If his yield starts to drop and he gets less, barley seed, well, he won't make any money. He will not use that barley. He wants to use barley that's going to give him make a lot of money for him. But he's also, for the distiller, we've got to have barley that's going to process well in the distillery. That's going to have the right amount of the sugars.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to give us the alcohol that we need to make our whiskey. And so we do change regularly. As I said, it could be once, twice per year. It could be 3 times a month. But as long as the barley type is fairly straightforward, that it doesn't change too much, it won't affect the flavour, because the barley doesn't really affect the flavour too much unless you're going to put peat into the barley when you're doing the malting process. Then the barley would affect the flavour. But at Glengoyne, the barley just gives good yields, good levels of alcohol for us.
So nowadays, what kind of barley do you use?
At the moment, we're using a barley called Laureate.
Laureate,
yeah. So we've been using that one now for just over a year. And we probably use it for maybe another year or 2. We still use occasionally Golden Promise.
Yes.
At Glengoyne.
Before.
But Golden Promise has been since the 1960s. It's a very old barley strain. Not many people or distilleries use it anymore, but Glengoyne uses
small ones.
Occasionally, yeah.
So I think it's really hard to study about the barleys because always new varieties coming.
They're always coming in. Yeah. I mean, it's a big business, but you've always. The barley producers, they're always testing new barleys. They'll grow barley in the north, and they'll also grow barley in New Zealand, so they can get two crops per year, so they can see how it's going to develop. Because not all barley will eventually make it to become a distiller's barley. A lot of them just they maybe get too much disease, or perhaps the yield is too low. Or they just don't mash well, they don't process well.
Okay. And also I toured before the mill loom, grind into grist, mixed up 10% flour and 20% husk and 70% middles. Does its ratio mean anything?
Its ratio, yeah, each distillery has that ratio, and it will be slightly different. If we had a different spirit type, the middle ratio, the grist would perhaps be higher. In fact, the husk is very rarely 20%. It's a slightly higher fruit. It's usually between 20 and 25% at Glengoyne, and that gives us very good drainage. Whereas if you had the middle section, which is where all the sugars are, that's where you get your extraction coming through from the grits. If you had that higher than say 65%, because that's usually where we are, you would get more sugars. But if we were to increase that middle section, the grit section, we would then changed our spirit character. So it can affect your spirit character, the way you grind the malted barley.
Oh, so you stick to
it's a recipe.
Ratio
Yeah.
from the old one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That mill you saw there is very old. It's very old. I think it came into the distillery, I was told, about 1912. So we've been using that mill for over 100 years, 110 years. And we've been doing the same ratio for all that time. We tend not to change things. We just keep them as they are.
So sometimes the special whiskey is planned to make. The how long does it
Mature.
Yes, but not to change about the ratio about.
We don't. Whatever we do, we never change anything. So even if we know we're going to be, for example, if we knew we were going to be using Golden Promise or we're going to be using Laureate, the ratio probably stays the same. If we know that our whiskey is going to go into very expensive casks, we don't change anything. It's consistency. Being consistent is one of the most important things when you operate in the distillery. Don't change things, because every time you change things, you can affect maybe the flavour.
Yes, of course.
You don't affect the flavour. So you've got to be very careful.
So it is most important things about the consistency.
Consistency is very important, yeah.
Okay. What is your opinion about whiskey industry in the future? Nowadays, it is problem about the climate change and also the inflation.
The whiskey industry is having the same challenges as everybody. Every industry is having the same challenges. We've got the immediate challenges now of energy and inflation. Energy prices are so high.
Yes.
I mean, we've never seen anything like this before. So the costs are going to be very, very expensive. The barley that's grown this year, that's going to be very expensive. So producing any whiskey anywhere in the world, the prices are going to go up, and eventually that means a bottle of whiskey is going to become more expensive. So people buying it in the markets, in the shops. So hopefully things will ease off. But with regards climate change, that's the bigger problem. That's an even bigger problem. But not just for the whiskey industry, that's global. Problems it brings us in Scotland is, will we get water when we want it? Are the summers going to get drier, last longer? Will the barley be as good if the summers are drier and last longer? But the industry though is meeting the challenge head on. We're not ignoring the problems. The industry is trying to reduce the carbon loading from every distillery. Yes. You've probably heard about the wetlands we have here at Glengoyne.
Yes, you have a good campaign.
We have wetlands here, so that helps reduce our putting too much stress on the local environment. We deal with our effluent in a biological way. In the past, we used to put it into the back of a tanker and move it, and somebody else would deal with it, and that's not good. We deal with these things. We try and deal with these things ourselves. But we're looking at reducing energy throughout all of our distilleries. We're building a new distillery on Islay. We're looking to make it the greenest distillery we possibly can. We want to do as little damage to the environment as possible. And hopefully in maybe 10, 20 years, just carbon neutral. But it's difficult. Yes, it isn't easy. It's difficult. Yeah, it is very difficult to stop using carbon, to stop using oil and stop using gas, especially at the moment.
여행의 끝 위스키. 다음 편에서는 디스틸러리 매니저 로비유가 가장 좋아하는 글렌고인 이야기가 이어진다.